What's up everyone, Erik here and welcome to Hardware for Gamers. Today we're going to be doing an in-depth analysis of the performance and visuals of Fat Shark's new game, Warhammer 40K Darktide. We'll be taking a look at the performance and visuals of each of the graphical presets, as well as I went through each of the settings to see what they actually do. And by the time we're done, we should be able to boost performance by up to 33% with no or at least very minimal visual loss. I used my GPU test system for all this testing. All this testing was ran at 1440p, pretty much right at the beginning of the prologue, with patch 1.0.13, and I used AMD drivers 22.11.2. Now I know a lot of people are probably going to be really pissed off about this, but I don't have any NVIDIA 3000 series GPUs. They're just too much money for the amount of performance you get for them. So all of the results will be based off of AMD 6000 series GPUs. Sorry. Patch 1.0.14 did just drop the same day of recording this video. I did go back and check some of the graphical settings, and the performance seems to be the same as patch 1.0.13. So all the testing should still be good. Now in these charts, I will be using the high preset as the default preset, and I'll be showing the gains and losses as percentages. So I think this is the easiest way to kind of show performance. So starting off with the high preset, as indicated by the name, most everything is set to high. Now this does go for all the presets. Sharpen and anti-aliasing is off, as well as both of the FidelityFX super resolutions are off. For the medium preset, most everything is set to medium. Global illumination is set to high. Skin subsurface scattering is off, and lens flares is set to sunlight only. For the low preset, most everything is set to low. Depth of field is off. Motion blur is now off. Screen space reflections is off, but I'm not entirely sure that it is actually off. Lens quality is off, and lens flares is now off. So by setting the high preset as the default or the baseline, you can gain 23% to the average FPS and 9% to the 1% low by using the medium preset. By using the low preset, gains you 50% to the average FPS and 37% to the 1% low. Now there is a substantial visual difference between these presets, so simply using the low preset may not be appealing to most people, myself being one of them. But as I said before, I have gone through all the settings to see how each of them affect the performance and the visuals. Beginning with anti-aliasing and sharpen, you can see in this chart using sharpen and or FXAA doesn't really affect performance. But by using TAA, there was around an 8% performance loss to both the average FPS and 1% low. The combination of TAA and sharpen looks the best, but for that 8% cost to performance, I personally don't think it's really worth it, especially when FXAA and sharpen cost pretty much nothing. Okay, moving on to ambient occlusion. With ambient occlusion off, the screen looks flat. Now to me, high does look best, but not by much. Then between medium and low, I really don't see a quality difference. I do see a difference in the shadows, but which one looks better, I really don't know. So as we can see in the chart, there really isn't a performance difference between medium and low, which kind of makes sense since there's not much of a visual difference. Now you can boost performance by around 13% by turning off ambient occlusion. Now the scene will look much flatter by doing this, so unless you really need that extra performance boost, I would suggest going with low or medium. Moving on to light quality, there's really not too much of a performance difference between these settings. There's really not much of a visual difference between these settings either. The extreme preset does have slightly more pronounced shadows, and they fade out or decrease as the settings go down. So for light quality, you can realistically pick whichever you want, because there's really not much of a performance difference. Volumetric fog. For the life of me, I can't see the difference between extreme, high, and medium, or am I just crazy? Now low does seem to be more off than low, so yeah. So based off the performance difference and the lack of a visual difference, I would recommend going with medium. Depth of field is up next. Now I'm not seeing any difference between any of these settings, which could explain why there's such a minimum performance boost when using medium or off. Now for global illumination, there are two options, high and low. High does give an extra layer of shadows over low, but since there's no real performance difference between high and low, I would recommend using high. Moving on to bloom. Bloom gives a nice aura around most, if not all, of the light sources in the game. There are only two options, on or off. I feel bloom gives some needed ambiance or atmosphere to the levels, which is well worth leaving it on, since it's only giving around a 2% boost to performance when it's turned off. Skin subsurface scattering, try to say that 5 times fast. When looking at this dead guardsman's ear, it does look so much better with skin subsurface scattering on. Now I do need to note or admit that I didn't test this effect with any hordes, so the performance shown here may not be true to what is actually in-game performance, meaning it might give you more performance when there's a horde going on when it's off. Motion blur is next. There is only two options, on or off, and you get around a 6% boost by turning off motion blur. Now I typically turn off motion blur in all games because I don't like motion blur. Lens quality adds a blur or a distortion to faraway objects. There's really not much of a performance boost when off, so it's more to do with the effect and if you like it. Lens flare has 3 options, all lights, only sunlight, and off. Turning lens flare off boosts performance by just under 2%, so it's really up to you if you want lens flares on. Screen space reflections has 3 options, high, medium, and off. High does have slightly more detail than medium does, but off isn't off. It seems to be more like low, which is interesting. And there is a sizable performance difference between the 3. Now, based off what I see, I would go with low, personally, to get that extra boost. Plus, I feel you don't get much time to look around in Darktide, so if things do look a little better, it doesn't really mean too much to me, personally. Now, before we go over my custom settings, if you are liking this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, because patch 1.0.13 did really F me up because I had already tested all this on patch 1.0.12, then patch 1.0.13 changed everything, dropping all the performance down quite a bit, so I did end up redoing all of this testing, which was super fun. And if you don't get that, that was sarcasm, because it really sucked, because I probably ended up doing about 200 runs of tests to get all this stuff down and done. So yeah, please like the video. To finally finish off the native resolution testing, because I have also done some FidelityFX testing that I'll get to in a bit, I have added a few custom setting presets to the chart. So everything from the most minimal you can get to the maxed out settings. Plus I did check out resizable bar, which does seem to give a very slight boost to performance, which is nice to see. Now for my custom settings, I was able to get a 33% boost to both the average FPS and 1% low. So I have sharpen on with FXAA anti-aliasing. I have ambient occlusion at medium, light quality set to high, volumetric fog at medium, depth of field to medium, global illumination to high, bloom is on, skin subsurface scattering is off, motion blur is off, screen space reflections is off, which means low in this situation, or as far as I can tell. Lens quality is all on, and lens flare is on all lights. And I really do think this looks better than the high preset. Now that might be because motion blur is off and FXAA and sharpen are on, but still I think it does. And finally, I wanted to touch on that FidelityFX testing. I did test all of them, but I do not have any visual comparisons. I feel that that would probably be another video entirely. But just to give a basic idea of what performance boost you can actually get with this. Now, if you do want to use FidelityFX to get that extra boost, I feel you shouldn't use anything other than FidelityFX 2 quality setting if you're playing at 1440p anyway. At 4K, it might be a little different. I did do some testing at 1080p and it looked pretty good there too. And this is because on anything other than quality, I was getting some really odd distortions or artifacting, especially around the chain link fence. This might have something to do with motion blur, or maybe not. More testing would be required. But that is all that I have for this one. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're still watching and you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified whenever I drop a new video. There is the HFG Discord server. It is completely free to join. All you have to do is agree to the server rules and then you get to see all of my charts. There is a link down in the description. There is also Patreon if you'd like to support the channel directly. Again, a link is in the description. You may want to check out this video right here. It would be along the same lines of what we just watched maybe. Maybe not, because I don't actually have anything else like this. And as always, thank you very much for watching and see you next time.